Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Wednesday, episode 8. So we have been doing this for 2 months now, and I have read a lot of different things about habit forming, anywhere from that it takes 30 days to 90 days to 6 months to form a new habit. I've done a lot of Kundalini over the years, Kundalini yoga, and in the Kundalini tradition, you do a 90-day practice. So it takes you 90 days to alter an energetic pattern and create a new neural pathway, a new energetic pattern in your body, in your mind, in your emotional field. So we are well on our way to forming a weekly meditation practice habit. So thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for tuning in every week. I'm so excited that we're still doing this practice together. And I appreciate you very much for showing up and making this a collective practice and elevating our vibration through that collective exchange of energy. So quickly before we start tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about the month of September. We are in September now, and I am offering a discount code for 30% off all of the services I offer through my website, which is paulataylorenergy.com. So this includes my coaching and energy work, as well as the packages of 3 that I sell that are already discounted. It's an additional 30% off. And I just wanted to briefly talk about why I think it might be useful. So I've designed my entire process, my entire body of work at this point, for you to be able to do this on your own. I wrote the book so that you'd have the information to do spiritual integration yourself. The meditations are there to help you, but everyone needs extra help once in a while. I have people that I turn to when I'm feeling blocked or when I feel like I'm too close to something, I need another opinion. So I encourage you to reach out if you feel like you need to, if you'd like to. My goal as a coach and in energy work is to give you tools that you can use on your own. I don't want you to be dependent on me. I don't want you to be having to come back over and over and over again to see me, we're doing everything virtually, but see me through Zoom indefinitely. I want to give you tools so that you can do this work on your own and even possibly work with someone else, because when we raise our vibration, that's how we raise the vibration of the world. That's how we affect everything and everyone around us. So for this month, if you want to come and book, the code is kindness 2020. I'll leave it in the comments after this. You put that code in and you'll get 30% off. The packages are good for a year. So you could buy 3 packages and use one every 3 months, and that would get you through 9 months. And that's enough of that for tonight. So, kindness. I tell you what, all day long, I've sort of been unpacking this in my mind because it seems like a simple subject. And I was inspired to do this last week. I went into meditation for myself about kindness, and I was really surprised at where the meditation took me. So I know what the meditation is. We're going to repeat something like that tonight. But when I started thinking about what to talk about, at first I was like, oh, well, there's not really much to say. And then I was like unpacking, and I came up with more and more. So I'm going to try to keep this simple, but still kind of get into why kindness and trauma are connected. Because when I went into the meditation for myself, I was really surprised that it ended up being about trauma. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So first of all, what is kindness? I looked it up, and generally speaking, the definitions were kind acts. So generosity, altruism, doing something nice for someone. And so basically at the root of it spiritually for me, kindness is about acts of love, performing acts of love. So what happens when we aren't being kind to ourselves, when we don't perform acts of love for ourselves? That's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. So what happens, unfortunately, when we're not being kind to ourselves is that we tend to project that onto other people in different ways. So we might have judgments about someone else or about their motivations toward us, but a lot of the times that's a projection of a trauma that we haven't dealt with in ourselves, or that we're aware of. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between being triggered without knowing it and being triggered when you sort of know it. And actually, I guess I'll do that right now. So The other day I was watching, my husband and I like to watch House Hunters International. We have this dream of moving to Europe someday. And he pointed out to me the other day, he said, wow, you're really judgmental of the women. You're always pointing things out about how they look. And I was like, my initial reaction was like, which is kind of like the being triggered by your trauma without realizing it. But then I thought about it for a while, and I realized he was right. And it makes total sense to me, because I have been pretty open about having body issues, having what I call food addiction, having issues around food and eating and how I look. And so, of course, I'm going to judge other people based on that, but it has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with me. So maybe I wasn't feeling good about myself that day. And so I'm nitpicking everything about this poor woman who's just trying to find a house in Malta or whatever. So that's an example of how we project judgments onto other people. The other thing that happens when we're not feeling good about ourselves, when we're not being kind to ourselves, is that the harshness we feel toward ourselves gets taken out on other people. So that might be harsh words, that might be harsh actions. So working with the kindness toward ourselves, working on self-love, is how we improve our kindness and our love for other people. So our worldview is colored by our experiences, and this is where trauma comes in. So everybody has trauma. No matter if you've been alive for 6 months, you've probably already had a trauma. And of course, there's varying levels of trauma, and everybody deals with trauma differently. But unless you're processing trauma in the moment, which is very uncommon, that's kind of why it ends up being called trauma. It's something that in the moment you just couldn't deal with it. And so we sort of shove it away, shove it down. Sometimes we're just in survival mode. We're just trying to get through the moment, either physically or emotionally. And we don't deal with the trauma. And so what happens energetically is that trauma gets trapped in our energetic field, which is connected to our physical body. So that causes stagnation. It causes the energy not to flow right. And that interrupts this flow of divine love that allows us to act out of love. So the first thing I want to say about trauma is that you may need help with this. Depending on what your trauma is, how intense it was, how long ago it happened, you may need a licensed mental health professional to help you deal with trauma. And so I encourage you to reach out and find someone if that's the case. And I also encourage you to continue with energy work and or coaching, because they are a fantastic complement to doing therapy. So what happens when you're in talk therapy is that you're addressing kind of the mental level of the trauma. Sometimes just bringing it back to the surface, being able to talk about it, but it's still in your energetic body until you do the energetic work to release it. So that's how the talk therapy and the energy work really it's kind of a 1-2 punch to really get that trauma out of your body once and for all. And sometimes that takes years, and it's a process. And the great thing is that when you're more aware, just like anything else in energy work, awareness is the first step. So when you start to become more aware of your trauma, like when my husband pointed that out to me the other day, and I was kind of just like, at first. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know this is a trauma. I know this is a trigger for me. And then I thought it through a little bit more, and then I was able to kind of process it. So instead of seeing through that worldview that gets colored by our trauma, when we have awareness, we can use that observer self that we've developed in meditation to step outside of the trauma and see it from a more objective standpoint. And that's another way that coaching can be really helpful. It helps you get that objective standpoint, as well as in therapy. Sorry, I lost my place a little bit. Okay. I said all of that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of getting triggered. So everybody gets triggered, even probably the Dalai Lama gets triggered. Like, it's part of being human. We have these little worldviews, we have these traumas, and every once in a while, somebody hits our buttons, somebody pushes our buttons. And I've written several blog posts on that. You can check them out on my website. And I wanted to give an example that was really simple of being triggered in a trauma without realizing it. So I had this amazing beagle. I've talked about him. I've written about him. His name is Henry. And he was the most loving guy. You could do anything in the world to this dog. When my husband's niece was young, she would pull his tail and poke him in the eyes. And he was just like, all happy. Never, did not have an aggressive bone in his body. But one time I was at the vet with him. He had a back problem. He was having a horrible flare-up of pain. He was in so much pain. We were trying to get him off a table and he tried to bite me. And that's not something that was completely out of character for him. But what happened was he was triggered. He was in trauma. He was in physical pain. He didn't understand why he was triggered, which is very common in trauma. So you're triggered, but you don't really understand why you're triggered. And then the other thing is he didn't have the tools to address his trauma. He couldn't stop the pain in his back at that moment. So he just lashed out at the nearest person. It happened to be my face. And he didn't bite me. He just kind of snapped at me. So this is very common in us as people. So we get triggered. We don't realize we're triggered. And even if we do, we don't have the tools to step out of that state of being triggered. And we just lash out. And so when someone does that to you as the other person, it can feel very personal. It can feel like a personal attack. But it's really not about you at all. It's about the other person. So when you work on your own trauma, then you have the opportunity to stop that. And again, everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes, but the more aware we are, the more we process these traumas, the more we can stop and say, oh, hey, I'm being triggered right now, and step out of that. And again, I talk about that. I've got a series of blog posts called Living in Truth, and I talk a lot about triggering. So you're welcome to visit my website and read those to learn more about that. So when I did my meditation on kindness the other day, again, I thought I was just going to do this nice, warm, loving, heart-centered meditation, which is how we will end tonight. But before I could get there, I was actually led through a series of traumas in my own life. And at each one, I was given the opportunity to stop and give myself what I didn't have in that moment when the trauma occurred. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what I mean just with a simple example. So I feel like everyone can relate to this, hopefully. As a little kid, imagine that you had an ice cream cone as a little kid and you're just so excited about your ice cream cone and you drop your ice cream cone. I feel like everybody's been there or in a similar situation. So that's very traumatic at the time because you had this ice cream and you were so excited and then it was gone. So then let's imagine that in that moment, maybe you were crying and you were trying to get your parents' attention and for some reason they were distracted. Maybe they had other kids or something else was going on. And so in that moment, you didn't get what you needed to resolve the trauma. You needed a big hug. You needed a kiss. Maybe you needed to do ice cream. There's a lot of different things that you might have needed in that moment. So that's what we're going to do in this meditation tonight. And again, trauma can be very heavy. There's a lot of different types of trauma. So I encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional if you need to. And for this meditation, unless you're already working with a trauma, I suggest that you start small. So set the intention at the beginning of the meditation to find something like the ice cream, something that's not going to just leave you a puddle of not being able to function at the end of this. The idea is to start this as a practice. So we want to find, for instance, one of my things was a time in school when somebody was being really mean to me and I was being bullied. And so at that time, I didn't have the tools that I have now to give myself what I needed, to give myself the love, to explain to my, junior high or high school self that this person was attacking me out of their own pain and it had nothing to do with me. So that's kind of the goal for tonight's meditation. And again, you can repeat this as many times as you want. So you can start with something like the ice cream cone or, something that's not a huge trauma, something that was traumatic but feels manageable. And if you set that intention, then in the meditation, hopefully that will come to you. And then at the end of the meditation, we are going to go into the heart center and just experience some beautiful love and joy and send that to ourselves to be kind to ourselves. And then the last thing I wanted to say before we start, just in case I forget at the end, is that I want you to do something in the next week that's kind to yourself. So tonight I'm wearing my favorite shirt. And I did that to be kind to myself because it makes me smile. When I do these videos, I'm kind of just watching myself talk through the camera. So I get to look at my favorite shirt and it makes me feel good. It was an act of self-love, an act of kindness toward myself to pick this shirt that I love. So something very simple. It doesn't have to be a grandiose gesture, but try to do something at least once a day, whether it's taking a little time to journal, whether it's taking a picture of something pretty that's outside, whether it's listening to the birds, whether it's listening to your favorite song and dancing around a little bit, whatever comes to you. I want you to give yourself an act of love. Try to do it every day for the next week and see how things change. And if you forget, be gentle with yourself. That's one thing I say every week. Like, don't beat yourself up because you forgot to do your act of love. That kind of defeats the purpose of that. So, all right, that is all I have to say before we start the meditation. As always, be gentle with yourself. And in this meditation particularly, if it starts to seem like it's getting too intense, back out. You can always just stay in the heart center. At the end, we're going to invite our waterfall of joy to come into the heart. You can take deep breaths. If you need to get up and move around, you can do that. If you need to back out of this, that's okay. Be gentle with yourself and just stop and breathe. And again, if you need to reach out to someone, absolutely please do that. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water. And let's begin. So find yourself in a nice, comfortable position. Try to have at least one or two body parts touching the floor, whether it's the bottom of your feet or your actual bottom. If you're lying down, feel your entire back along the earth, along the floor. Take a couple of nice deep breaths, as we always do, in through the nose and out through the mouth with a big sigh. Bring your hands to your heart and set the intention to do this practice with the utmost love and respect for where you are in this moment in time. Set the intention to step into a trauma that's not completely overwhelming to you so that you can begin this practice, so that you can see how rewarding it is to step into a moment that's already occurred in time and give yourself the gift, the love that you weren't given in that moment. Take a few more deep breaths. Notice where you're holding any tension in the body. You can move around a little bit. Take a nice big breath into those areas of tension. And sigh it out. Feel your feet firmly planted on the ground or your bottom, whatever part is touching the earth. Let yourself grow heavy and relaxed. We're not traveling out of the body today. We're staying in our own energetic field. So get comfortable here. Continue to breathe deeply. Continue to breathe any areas of tension deeply into those areas. Take a moment, and if you can, if it's comfortable, place your hands on your knees and breathe some nice deep breaths, some fresh energy into the knees. Let your knees support you energetically through this process. Let your feet, your connection to the earth, wherever that is, support you. The earth is like a beautiful mother cradling us when we open to that energy. So as you do some mothering of yourself today, giving some unconditional love to yourself, you can allow Mother Earth to give you unconditional love as well. Let your hips and pelvis feel heavy and relaxed. Take a nice big breath into your belly and your low back. You can put your hands there if it's comfortable. And before we move into the heart, send a brief scan, a brief bit of awareness into the area just around your body. And just like in the body itself, notice if you find any tension in this area, anything that feels like it's not flowing. And take a couple deep breaths into that area of energetic tension. We're getting ourselves into a nice, relaxed, flowing state before we do this work today. And as you're ready, bring your awareness to the heart. You can place your hands there, but you don't have to, whatever feels comfortable and appropriate in the moment. Do this with the utmost love, with the utmost respect. Be very gentle. Throughout this process in the heart, imagine that you're holding a beautiful baby or a beautiful kitten, a beautiful baby animal, a puppy, a koala, a hippo, whatever comes to you. Treat yourself with the gentleness, with the love that you would show this baby animal. And as you're ready, invite your awareness to travel back in time, in your own timeline, in your own life, this life on this physical plane this time around. And see where your attention is drawn. It may be an early memory. It may be a more recent one. Remember that we're in a completely safe space here. We're in our observer self. Nothing can harm us while we're in this meditation. We're completely safe and secure. If this memory brings up too many feelings, if it feels too overwhelming, then move on to the next one. That's completely acceptable. Only you know intuitively what the right memory for this particular meditation is for you. So spend a little bit of time finding this memory in your mind, in your timeline. You may move around a little bit. Don't put pressure on yourself. The goal here is to just get familiar with this process so that you can repeat it as needed. And once you've found your memory, if you're comfortable, you can step into it a little bit more fully. That's not necessary. You can watch it from afar. You could imagine that you're hovering at the top of the room or well above the scene. You can imagine that you're watching a scene in a movie. You're not connected to the scene. But if you feel comfortable, if you'd like to experience it more fully, you can step into yourself at that time and notice how you feel. Notice how this memory is affecting you in the moment, whether it's from afar or within. Both are equally valuable. Maybe you're in shock. Maybe something's happening to you and it seems like it came out of nowhere. Maybe you're feeling small and scared. Maybe you're wanting to run away. Maybe you actually did in this memory. Whatever comes up here, be very gentle with yourself. Be very loving. Remember that you are a beautiful baby, animal, human, whatever works for you. And as you're ready, begin to notice What could have helped you in that moment? Maybe it was someone else stepping in to help who didn't. Maybe it was something you could have said to stand up for yourself. Maybe you feel like you didn't get away soon enough. This is not self-blame. There is nothing you could have changed about that moment at that moment in time. You were doing the absolute best you could. But looking back from this perspective, with the tools that you've gained in this time, with the perspective that you've gained, what could be done for that version of yourself that could have helped you? Give yourself a minute or two to recognize the answer, to let it come to you. You can always back further out of the scene if it's getting a little bit too intense. You can come completely out of the meditation and just rest in your heart center. Feel your feet on the earth. Take some deep breaths if you need to. If you're still in the memory, once you know what it is that you could have offered, maybe it was just a hug. Maybe it was someone just looking deeply into your eyes and saying, "You are so loved." Maybe you've needed a physical object. Whatever it is, offer that to yourself with love in this moment. Comfort this version of yourself that was in that traumatic event in whatever way feels appropriate. Make sure you tell this version of yourself that they are not to blame for what happened. This traumatic event is most likely the result of someone else's trauma. And so it has been through history. And so we have a chance now to step out of this cycle, this recycling of trauma. Give yourself that opportunity here. Stay with this as long as you like, as long as you need to. If you feel that you're resolved and you'd like to move on to another memory and use the same method, we have a few more minutes here. You can do that on your own. Again, being very gentle with yourself. This is probably the first time you've done this. And if that's the case, then you might want to stay here and continue to show kindness and love to yourself. And if you've finished that, maybe you want to show kindness and love to the other party involved in this trauma. You absolutely do not have to. And sending love or kindness to someone does not excuse behavior, does not change the fact that they hurt you. But acknowledging that they're acting out of pain and that they were just doing the best they could in that moment, however much they hurt someone else, to whatever limit you feel. You may offer that. You don't have to. But if it feels appropriate, maybe you look at this other party and you say, "I'm so sorry you were in this much pain. You are also loved." You can invite them to step in to the divine love that you've been experiencing through these meditations. If you're comfortable, if it's appropriate. It may never be. Spend a few more minutes here. Take a nice deep breath if you need to. If you'd like to, you can let yourself see what this situation might have been like if both the people here were able to tap into this love, were able to let go of their pain. Both the person that lashed out and caused you pain, and then you feeling that pain in that moment. Maybe we can release all the pain. If you're guided to go elsewhere in your body, that's completely okay. You don't have to stay in the heart center. We store traumas throughout our bodies, in the legs, in the shoulders, in the back. So the last step here is to locate this trauma in your body and be gentle here. You may not be completely releasing this in one session, and that's okay. We're just bringing some awareness. We're bringing some love. Introducing this divine flow of love to this trauma is the first step to allowing it movement, to changing the stagnation, so that eventually we can process and release it. But be gentle with yourself here. If you've located the area of your body where this trauma is stored, send your awareness there. Send the love that you gave to this other version of yourself into that part of the body. If you saw a different outcome from this perspective, you can send that into the body here as well. We're just showing the body that there's an opportunity to let this go, whether it's now or in the future. We're just bringing awareness to the fact that this does not need to be stored permanently in our body, in our energetic field. And the energetic field is an extension of the body, so you may have been guided to someplace just outside the body, and that's equally valid as in the body. Remembering that this is a gentle process, that this is an introduction. Invite yourself to leave this memory, to leave the area of the body where the memory was stored and come back into the heart. We're going to let this memory go for now. Whether it's completely processed, whether it's released, is not important. The awareness of this process is what's important. If you've moved them elsewhere, bring your hands back to your heart now, if it's comfortable. If you've been doing these meditations weekly, I want you to invite your waterfall of joy, of divine love and bliss to flow directly into the heart center here. If you're new to this, that's completely okay. Picture the heart, the actual area around your physical heart, this heart chakra, this center of energy. Let it open here. You can imagine a beautiful flower with the petals that are opening to the most exquisite, gentle, warm sunlight you can imagine. And notice how this flower opens to the warmth of this sun, the warmth of this divine energy, this golden flow of unconditional light that enters the heart now and fills the space. You can let this beautiful golden energy, this waterfall of joy, fill your whole body, but especially focus on the heart here. Let yourself open completely to this flow of light and love, letting go of trauma for the moment, knowing that as this love comes into our field, into our body, it's already working on releasing trauma, on helping us expand and grow spiritually and emotionally into a more loving, higher vibrational being. Let this waterfall of love, let this beautiful sunlight of love fill your body now. Let it come even past your body out into the aura, into the space that expands infinitely out to the edge of the universe. Let this entire space fill with this love, with this flow of joy, with this beautiful feeling, with this acknowledgement that you are this love. This divine love is what you are made of. There is no separation. Not only are you loved, you are love. Let yourself experience that. Let your fear fall away for a moment and just open to this beautiful love, this beautiful light. Let this love and light bring a message to you, an affirmation of love for you personally going forward in the next week. Maybe it's as simple as you are loved, and you'll just repeat this to yourself whenever you think of it. Maybe you've knocked over a glass of water, and instead of chastising yourself, you just say you are loved. Even in those moments where we feel alone and disconnected, where we are stuck in our trauma, where we're triggered, we are still loved. We can still open to this love and let it change on a cellular level how we experience life on this plane. So sit in this love and this joy for just a few more moments. Let it fill your entire body. And notice that in the heart center, we are generating this love from within at all times. We're open to the flow of divine energy, and we generate this divine love, this divine flow, and we open ourselves to do so. Let yourself feel the flow of this stagnation going away. Let yourself feel this love flowing through your body, through your energetic fields. Maybe it's making its way to areas where you generally have pain or discomfort. Let this love flow freely through your entire body, through the area around your body, into your brain. Let this trauma response in the brain experience this love, this light, this divine connection. And as we finish this meditation, continue to let this love flow. Use your affirmation, whatever it ended up being. I am loved. You are so loved. Always. Let yourself really feel those words come in to your body, to your energetic field. You are so loved. Always. Take a deep breath and let it out with a big sigh. Breathe this love throughout the body for the last few moments here. As you're ready, you can take your hands away from the heart if they were still there. Just relax them down. Maintaining this state, this flow of love. If there's any remaining pieces of that memory, of that trauma floating around, invite them to flow out of your body now. You can send them down into the earth, which is so good at recycling energy, upcycling it into something that's usable. You can picture yourself gathering up that trauma and throwing it away with the intention of this energy being used and upcycled for the highest good. We're not throwing our pain at someone else here. We're just releasing it out of our field with the intention that this energy be used for the highest good elsewhere. You can even imagine sending it to a little energy factory where it will be upcycled into beautiful, golden, divine bliss and love. And as you're ready, begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Let yourself come back. Let your body move a little bit, maintaining this connection, but making sure that you're fully at home in the body here. You may have traveled a little bit out to get to your memory. You can repeat, I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body. And invite yourself to be fully present in your life. Invite this love to be present in your life, in your encounters with other people. Let this love for yourself ripple out into those that you encounter. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. I hope that you're feeling this love as much as I am right now. Thank you so much for joining me. You can reach out to me, leave comments below, or send messages through the website. And I forgot to mention I have a new online booking system, which is why I'm offering this 30% off. So if you're trying to book a session and there's a time that you're looking at and it's not available, you can send me a message through the website. There's a contact me form at the bottom of each page, and ask me about the time I may be able to accommodate it. Be gentle with yourself. Let this love continue. Reach out for help if you need it. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and a wonderful rest of your week. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to those around you.